We got a big football game tonight, the 75th rendition of the Amite River rivalry. Can we call them the Cardiac Cats? I think we can. It's kind of like a fire in the backyard, the embers that burn on and on and on. Well, that fire is finally put out tonight by those North Carolina Tar Heels. And I'm just glad I have a place to stand because this place is absolutely crazy. 4 o'clock when I got here, there were thousands of people outside enjoying the concert, waiting to get in. I mean, you said this is the hottest ticket. You weren't kidding. Now the Tigers have tomorrow off. They'll pick it up on Saturday with the winner of this game here, actually, Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. But until then, all you got to say is LSU! LSU! I know you're going to be a little short-handed, missing your starting quarterback. I was asking you about the backup. You know, how good is he? You said we'll find out tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the next man up mentality.
It's a Tiger takeover here in Detroit this evening. There's two groups of very happy people back in Baton Rouge. Of course, LSU Tiger fans and cardiologists as well, because this team has been on a wild ride recently. Tonight, the Baton Rouge Zydeco face off against the Columbus River Dragons at 7:30, and we'll probably hear that goal horn quite a bit tonight. Last season was the best in school history, I think it's fair to say.
That's right.
And you lost a lot of seniors from that team.
We did.
How have you guys started the season so well despite that?
So, well, we have our biggest senior class we've ever had.
Don't forget about the younger guys, too, especially that freshman class. Stephen Milam, Jake Brown, Ashton Larson. Look, freshman year's over. Their classes are all done. Exams are in the books. They're playing like sophomores. Let's live in the present, right? There's 10 games left in the season. Jay Johnson calls it a 10-game playoff, and it starts with a pretty tough test, a 3-game series with the #1 team in the country.
John, word of advice, try not to jump when they shoot those cannons off.
Well, good to know, Kevin. Thank you, because every time I go to the LSU baseball game, I still get scared by that cannon they shoot at that game. So I didn't know you guys shoot cannons at the games here. Is that what you do?
Yeah, every time we score.
Oh, okay, good to know. Now I know. And they're also, if I can get this out of my pocket, handing out some Kim Mulkey bobbleheads here. So a nice little souvenir. You've gotten off to a great start. Everybody talks about Elijah Haven, right? #1 quarterback in 2027. But your defense has been really good, too. What have you learned about your team early in the season?
Well, you know, we thought defensively we had great kids.
There's a lot of excitement about this team because what Coach Kelly's done in just 2 years is incredible. And usually when new coaches come in, they like to clean house, bring in a completely new staff. But he opted for continuity with 2 employees, and it's worked out pretty well. It's a bulldog battle tonight. Ascension Catholic traveling to White Castle with a district championship on the line. We'll break it all down for you coming up in sports, but first I'm here with JK and Finn. Guys, can we get a Go Tigers?
Go Tigers!
You said you guys talked last summer, I think, about being here. Not necessarily in Detroit, but as first-round picks, hanging out together.
Yeah.
What were those discussions like?
I mean, we dreamt about this. I can't even tell you what the discussion is like, man. Just talking about life.
I talked to Brian Kelly this morning. He said he thinks you're just scratching the surface on what you can be as a receiver. You agree with that?
Yes, sir. I would say I got a lot of room to improve, a lot of things to improve on with my game.
Well, don't let what I'm wearing fool you. It's actually very cold and windy here in Houston. While the majority of purple and gold faithful sat on the edge of their seats full of panic, Jay Johnson remaining steadfast, telling the guys, we're okay, we're going to be fine. And he was right. Selection Monday is one of Jay Johnson's favorite days of the year because 200 some odd college baseball teams are having exit meetings. Meanwhile, the season continues for 64, and LSU is one of them. Well, I think Stephen Milam said it best, ball don't lie. And LSU simply refuses to lose here in Hoover. Availability is the best ability, as they say, and Marcus May, well, he wasn't available very often last year, missing the same amount of games that he played, 17. LSU softball back at home this weekend for a 3-game series against Auburn, and Tiger Park is going to look a little bit different. But where did Braswell's strong affinity for LSU really develop? Well, in a kind of unconventional, yet still very cool place, kind of like this, a childhood bunker. We all had one, right? A chair, a table, a TV, and to top it all off, a gaming system. Really good at bats. I mean, yes, you're going to talk about the Tommy White Grand Slam. He absolutely just crushed that fastball that was thrown down the middle. Why that was thrown, I don't know. I think we asked him why it was thrown. He didn't know.
He didn't know either.
Spilling over from last season, cornerback and defensive line seem to be the two most popular and pressing concerns with this LSU football team. Well, the Saints appeared to be bulletproof after a pair of blowout wins to open the season, but the Eagles landed some punches today, including the knockout late in the fourth quarter. because Boss Hammer Stadium has some dimensions that are very friendly to that Tiger lineup. You can't rely on your offense to bring it like this every single week. You're going to run into a team like Alabama that plays excellent defense, and then your offense is going to struggle. Then what do you do? Well, we're just a few weeks away from August, so naturally the talk of the town right now is football, but we're not talking about football today. We're talking about lacrosse, but if they can beat the Broncos on Friday and continue that run, they'll be the first Class 5A team from Ascension Parish to ever play for a state championship. So how often would you say it goes right down the middle?
Majority of the time.
Give me a percentage.
Ooh, maybe like 80% of the time.
Opelousas native Keon Coleman had 3 touchdowns in his first game as a Seminole, and he says tonight's result was extra sweet because he dominated against his home state team. Well, we had an old-fashioned shootout on our hands tonight. Ole Miss beats LSU 55-49. The Tigers just ran out of ammunition. Hayden Travinsky said that the offense struggled a bit because guys weren't sticking to the plan after a bit of a rough start. This afternoon against Texas State, it was certainly different. And after falling short of that goal a couple of different times, she finally got over the hump this year, and all she needed was a little more practice on her putting. Kim Mulkey's team hoping to get in and get out and avoid suffering any more road SEC upsets. Sometimes the best news in life is the unexpected news, and LSU baseball fans got some of that in the mail today when projected first-round MLB draft pick William Schmidt announced his plans to play ball at LSU. Still some time to go, but LSU football's 2025 recruiting class has a chance to be one of the strongest in the program's history. The Tigers adding a 24th commitment today, and they did it in flip fashion. So if I were to run into you on the sidewalk yesterday, hypothetically, and tell you that the Falcons will not score an offensive touchdown against the Saints on Sunday, you'd think in most cases that New Orleans would win, right? Right? Well, let's see. So 2 years ago, Brian Kelly decided he did not need then LSU linebackers coach Blake Baker. Fast forward to now, Baker is the man that Kelly seems to need the most. They're called the Bomb Squad. They're very veteran. They've got some charisma. You win football games in the trenches. You win them up front. I think in most games, if not every, LSU have the advantage there. Just one day after the NBA draft wraps up, the Pels making a huge move. New Orleans and Atlanta agreeing on a blockbuster trade this afternoon. Take a good look at the screen behind me, folks, and read it closely. Jaden Daniels is him. For those of you out there that might be criticizing LSU football for its defensive back recruiting failures this cycle, let's all just take a peaceful breath because the Tigers added a promising prospect today. I'll tell you what, Flau'jae Johnson certainly isn't given the nickname Big Foe for her size. She's not the tallest player in the world, but she's called Big Foe because she steps up when the lights are the brightest. I'm not sure how he did this. He backhanded it and then grabbed it behind his head. I don't know. But look, SportsCenter Top 10 Plays asked for this clip. All right, well, there were a lot of possibilities for how today could go, and ultimately the worst possibility is the one that became reality. And that's what happens when your fate rests on a 2-15 football team. Brian Kelly decided enough is enough. And today, the head Tiger cleaned house, firing his defensive coordinator and 3 other members of the defensive coaching staff. Today, it was a carbon copy. Bama up 3 at the break. You go to the concession stand, you come back, and all of a sudden, it's the Tide up by 20, and then moments later, the game is over. LSU didn't have an answer for the dual threat abilities that Sellers had, which means they're in big trouble when Jalen Milroe and Alabama come into town and play the Tigers in a couple weeks here. Because if you couldn't stop Sellers, a guy that struggles to throw the ball, I don't know what you're going to do against a guy like Jalen Milroe. Who's the better driver?
Oh, me. When we were taking our driver test, our driver instructor said I drive way better than KD. So, and me.
No?
No, not really. He drive too close to the white lines. You think you're on the side of the road.
You've lived in a lot of different places.
Yes, sir.
Here for the majority of your life, right? But also in Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
And in California.
Yes, sir.
What's that all like?
It's most definitely new. It's different.
Yeah. And now here you are. One more year of college football, one more year of school. I know you're not too excited about the school part. Great student. But, you know, it's all in on football right now. So what you've been telling to me is, like, this is the year where you kind of step back into the spotlight a little bit and be like, hey, I'm Lance LeJohn and I'm back.
Yeah, I've been absent for a few years. Guys still remember me.
What is it about this program here and maybe about the group of guys you had, the seniors that are leaving this year, that allowed you guys to have so much success?
The thing about this program, it's a brotherhood.
So you're a 3-star
Yes,
on
sir.
24/7.
Yes, sir.
What was kind of your first reaction when you got that rating? That's exciting.
Actually, my first reaction, I was at Ole Miss talking to Ethan Fields like the day before I took a visit there, and I was like, bro, I don't know, like I can't get ranked, I don't have no stars. And he looked me up, he's like, bro, you're a 3-star, and I was just like, I was like, no way.
The Tiger Bats have been scorching hot for the past week, spanning 5 games, especially here in Hoover. So at some point you'd think they'd have to get cold, and unfortunately today was that day. Tennessee's bullpen stifles the LSU offense in a 4-3 win to claim the SEC championship.
They pitch well. They pitch really, really well. They don't miss over the plate very much. They seem to keep the ball away from the hitter's eyes well. They change speeds. They pitch. I think the story is how we played all week long. We had 2 dominant pitching performances. We had 2 dominant offensive performances and came up a little bit short. It was a great week in Hoover. Obviously, would have liked to got one more hit there and won the tournament. But eyes ahead for the Tigers.
The Tiger bullpen was certainly inconsistent at some points in the regular season, but the relief pitching, a big reason why LSU made it to the SEC Tournament Championship game, which should spark some optimism moving forward.
I really like what I saw from Thatcher Hurd. I mean, that's one of the biggest takeaways from this SEC tournament for me as a catcher is how good he looked and how much he's battled throughout the season. Getting him where he's at right now is a big addition to our pitching staff, but Will Helmer's too, a guy that probably hadn't pitched in the last month, and he comes out and throws up, 4 or 5 innings of zeros.
I really liked what I saw in terms of the depth of our pitching staff and guys that can make a positive contribution moving forward. In the NCAA tournament, I feel like this week showed we have more guys that I'm comfortable going to.
Even though the Tigers don't walk away with the championship hardware, this trip to Hoover should still be considered a success, because think about where this program was even a week ago. The NCAA tournament was still in question, but since then, Jay Johnson and company have come to Alabama, snagged 4 much-needed victories to cement themselves in the tournament field. Now a projected 2 seed. We'll find out the Tigers' fate tomorrow at 11 a.m. with the Tournament Selection Show. Covering LSU baseball, John Eads, WAFB 9 Sports.
I only have one problem with Luke Holman, is I'm only going to have him for 1 season. He is the best. Like, everything about him is elite.
LSU pitcher Luke Holman has emerged as one of the best starters in the country this season and taken his game to a whole new level. The right-hander ranking top 3 in the SEC with a 2.54 ERA, a 167 opponent batting average, and 116 strikeouts.
He does a great job of mixing pitches well. He kind of keeps the hitter off balance, and he can throw any pitch in any count whenever he wants to, and I think that's been huge for us this year.
Holman hasn't always been a Tiger. He began his college career over at Alabama as the Friday night starter, but entered the transfer portal after the 2023 season.
When he went in, like, let's go. I thought he was one of the best pitchers in the SEC last year. It was pretty high priority. I mean, the big fella who's doing okay in the major leagues right now, it's like, you're not going to ever replicate that. But my goal was to who is the best guy. And Luke was the best guy.
Luckily for Jay Johnson and company, the Holman family had actually been attracted to LSU for quite some time.
8th grade, I came to a tryout, and I wasn't the biggest guy. I was super skinny, couldn't throw hard, but the tryout I could spin the breaker pretty good, so that caught their eye a little bit. And I've always wanted to go there out of high school, so it's kind of like a dream come true when they said, hey, we're interested. And that was kind of one of the first big school to be interested in me. So
Holman actually verbally committed to LSU going into high school before eventually turning down the Tigers the first time for the Tide, but not the second. And Coach Johnson's pitch was just too enticing to refuse.
Every team wanted Luke, but Jay said, I need you. I need you. And if I have you, I have a chance to go back to Omaha. If I don't get you, I don't know that I do. They won the College World Series. He came home, he got on a plane and flew to North Carolina and met with me and Luke, and he stood in front of him. He said, I need him. And Luke, that never left Luke's mind. We made a decision 2 weeks later, but Luke said, I think Jay needs me.
It's always glad to hear when you're needed somewhere. You know, it's like, hey, just come here and play. But when they say they need you, it really means a lot.
Since Holman has donned the purple and gold, he's taken his game to a whole new level.
I think it also helps me work harder in the weight room and all that type of stuff, because when you're needed, you know, you got to give everything you got. And I think I've become a much better pitcher when I got here, just mentally.
These improvements have many professional scouts eyeballing Holman's skills for the future. But what if I told you that at one point, Luke's current reality and promising future were nothing but a dream?
He had a stomachache for 3 or 4 weeks consecutive. He was getting up in the middle of the night and actually throwing up. We took him down to Hershey Medical Center 3 days before Christmas. The doctor came out, said, "Mr. Holman, can I talk to you?" I recognized it probably wasn't good, just his face. But he said, "What are you about to do?" I said, "We're about to go up to New York City for the weekend." He said, "Well, do your thing. Can't do anything about it now, but we think he's got cancer." And I almost just broke down. And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, he's got a tumor in his stomach."
Luke was diagnosed with anaplastic large cell lymphoma in December of 2010 at just a young age of 7 years old.
It hits you hard. You're helpless. You can't do anything about it. And it was a tough time. He started a 12-month regimen of chemotherapy every 2 weeks. We'd go in, get the chemotherapy. He was bedridden for 5 to 7 days. Couldn't do anything. Lost all his hair.
It was always the needles and all that type of stuff. The long days at the hospitals was probably the biggest thing I remember. Some days, 7, 8 hours, just sitting there, going to stations of, drawing blood, getting chemo, taking scans and all that type of stuff.
After a strenuous year-long battle through chemotherapy, Luke defeated his cancer, but the disease still left some lingering challenges.
It was a struggle for a couple of years. He went from a really, really good athlete at everything to not being so good. And so Luke had a lot of failure as a young kid, a lot of failure. He didn't throw hard, so he got hit. And when you get hit, you got to figure out a way to either one, throw harder, which I don't think he had it in him at 8, 9, 10 years old after cancer to throw hard. So he had to find a way to throw a changeup. And then he'd flip a curveball in there. And the guys would go, "Wow, okay." So he'd throw 4 or 5 curveballs. And I go, "You're getting them out." So he learned how to throw that. And then when he got older, he threw harder. I'd sit and he'd throw 50 curveballs in a row. And I said, "We're not leaving till we throw 9, 10 out of 10 curveballs." And we'd sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there. And then all of a sudden, a month later, it's phenomenal. And I said, we wouldn't be here if we didn't start here and struggle.
The struggle has certainly paid off. Luke, a rising star on this LSU baseball team, hoping to make another run back to Omaha and a projected high draft pick in the upcoming MLB draft.
I think everything that he's gone through in his life helps him on the mound every outing. I see it. I was in Baton Rouge when he struck out 3 guys with the bases loaded with Texas A&M. I actually went and cried over against the wall. He's 21, he's 6'4", he's 205. I still see 7 years old and bald.
He's the real deal. Like, he's going to pitch for a long time. And I love it, too, because there might be guys that have more on the fastball or metrics or this and that. I mean, there's nobody that I think is as effective as getting outs as him.
You can watch Luke work his magic today in a regional playoff game with the Tigers playing National 4 seed North Carolina. And let Luke Holman's story be a lesson that everything happens for a reason. John Eads, WAFB 9 Sports.